So this article is from Reuters. What's interesting about this is that President Biden is caught in the middle. His own envoy to Haiti quit, and the Republicans on the other side are saying that he's too lenient. He's allowing all these refugees to come to the United States to the border in Mexico and allowing these people in. So what's the real deal? U.S. envoy to Haiti resigns, blasts returning migrants to collapsed state. Uh, let's see. Ciudad Acuna, Mexico. The U.S. special envoy to Haiti resigned to protest in a letter that blasted the Biden administration for deporting hundreds of migrants back to the crisis in Gulf Caribbean nation from a camp on the U.S. Mexican border in recent days. Daniel Foote, a career diplomat named to his post in July, said the collapsed state was unable to support the infusion of returning migrants. I will not be associated with the United States' inhumane, counterproductive decision to deport thousands of Haitians, refugees, and illegal immigrants, Foote said in a letter addressed to Secretary of State Antony Blinken that circulated publicly on Thursday. Haiti, the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, had been hit in recent weeks by a presidential assassination, gang violence, and a major earthquake. The United States has returned more than 1,400 migrants from the camp in Del Rio, Texas, to Haiti, including families, and moved over 3,200 people for processing away from the encampment. Department of Homeland Security (DHS) officials said on Thursday. At its peak on September 18, there were some 15,000 people at the camp. Around two-thirds of these families, the officials said. Many of the immigrants say Many of the migrants say they hope to stay in the United States and seek asylum, but an expulsion policy in place since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic means most may not get that opportunity. Some are being loaded onto flights back to Haiti, while others are being released into the United States to pursue their immigration cases in court. At least 4 deportation flights to Haiti were scheduled for Thursday, according to a flight tracking website and activists who track deportation flights. Foote submitted his resignation to Blinken on Wednesday, a State Department spokesperson said, adding that Washington was committed to the long-term well-being of Haiti as well as offering immediate help to returning migrants. State Department spokesman Ned Price rejected Foote's criticism, saying that instead of participating in a solutions-oriented policy process, Special Envoy Foote has both resigned and mischaracterized the circumstances of his resignation. He failed to take advantage of ample opportunity to raise concerns about migration during his tenure and chose to resign instead, said Price. Foote's decision was interpreted and welcomed by rights groups as a stern criticism of the administration's immigration strategy. A big ball move and a big deal, said William O'Neill, a lawyer specializing in humanitarian, human rights, and refugee law. He will be missed. Biden's handling of the situation at the border, where record numbers have been detained this year, has led to growing disillusionment from migration advocates who hope for an end to the deterrent measures brought in by his predecessor Donald Trump. Julian Castro, a former housing secretary, wrote in a tweet that it's baffling and disappointing that President Biden has not spoken out about the mistreatment and continued deportation of Haitian asylum seekers. Well, maybe he didn't do it personally, but he has a spokesperson, Jan Psaki, who is in that room every day. She speaks. She speaks in his behalf. The Reverend Al Sharpton, a civil rights activist, said on a Twitter video that the Haitians should be granted asylum. If you come from a nation where the president has been assassinated in the last 60 days, followed by an earthquake, followed by a hurricane, I don't know how you can more qualify for asylum than that, he said. Well, the truth is that's not how asylum the criteria are written. That's not how it is. To claim asylum, you have to claim you have like some kind of a credible fear. You have to prove that there's a credible fear for your life, or maybe religious persecution or so forth. You can't just claim asylum because you can't find work in your country, or there's poverty, or there are gangs, or stuff like that. And I think another thing that complicates this issue that so far maybe this article hasn't mentioned is that the people who are coming in at the border, they're not really coming directly from Haiti. These people were living in South America, like Chile, Colombia, Panama. So it's not like they came on a boat and they were caught by the Coast Guard. Then you can understand that. But they were living a life. Some of them even have jobs. One guy was earning like $60 a day, which is a lot of money for a Haitian person who will never earn that kind of money. And I think he's like a welder in Panama. He sold his house, he sold his car. So if you live in a country where you can afford to have a car and a house, why would you want to come to the United States? That's the question, you know? You have to ask yourself that. Because you have a lot of people here who lost their jobs too in the United States. And they haven't been working. And things are worse for them. So while some Democrats have criticized Biden for being too tough, many Republicans have said Biden's efforts to introduce a more humanitarian approach, including the rolling back of some Trump measures, has encouraged illegal immigration. See? So Republicans attacking him, and his own envoy and some Democrats attacking him. So he's in the middle right now. Republicans are saying you're being too lenient, so you're encouraging these people to come to the border. And Democrats are saying, well, you're not doing enough. There's a crisis in Haiti, so you should let these people in. Well, the truth is, in order to claim asylum, you have to go through a process and it goes before a judge. So it's not like they have the power to say, okay, I'll let you in the country. That's it. Yeah, they can let you in, but then you have to go through a process. So it's not like, okay, you're home free. Here's a green card. No, that's not the way it works. It has to be, you have to go before a judge, and you have to convince that judge that you meet the requirements for asylum, and most people do not meet the requirements for asylum. So either what's going to happen, either they show up or they don't show up, or now they become a person without status who never showed up to the immigration hearing and become an illegal alien in the country. So that's the risk one takes, you know. When you allow people in and tell them, okay, within 60 days you show up. It's like, how many of them are really going to show up to court? You know, do you put an ankle bracelet on their legs or something like that? You know, on their ankle? I don't think so. Maybe if they do it, may make a difference, but I don't think they do. I think they just take it their word that they're gonna show up. But the truth is, from 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 what I've read and from what I understand about the laws, most of these people don't really have a real case for asylum, because saying that your country been hit by earthquakes or what have you, that's not really good enough to claim asylum. And the other thing, like I said, is that many of these people are not even coming from Haiti. They've been coming from other countries they've been living in. So they're not really personally affected. Some of them left when there was the other earthquake in 2010, back in 2010, and they left and they went to like maybe Chile, Panama, and so forth. And now they figure, here's an opportunity. You know, let me sell my house, let me sell my car, let me take my kid out of school, let me go up to the border and see if I'm going to cross the Rio Grande and see if I get lucky. Well, to me, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of foolish to say you're gonna throw hope to the wind and hopefully you get through. Because chances are, even if you get through and you get a hearing, you still may be denied. You know, because you have to be able to show credible fear or persecution. You have to be able to meet those criteria. One criterion at least, you have to meet. And I don't think many people are going to meet those criteria. So, let's see here. So DHS officials said that determination on who was expelled and who has been allowed to stay in the United States to pursue their immigration cases were made on a case-by-case basis. See? So even though they allow them in, that doesn't mean they're home free. That means, okay, you're allowed in, we hear your story, we hear your complaint, but now you go tell it to a judge, and the judge is the one who's going to make a legal determination whether you should get amnesty. Wade McMullen, an attorney with the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Organization, said several hundred people, mostly pregnant women and parents with children, had been released in Del Rio over the past several days. Others have left the dusty riverbank for Mexico to avoid being sent home. Mexican authorities in Ciudad Acuna, across the border from Del Rio, stepped up security operations on Thursday. Close to 20 patrol cars and numerous officers hoisted heavy-duty firearms, lining up along the river where migrants were crossing back and forth. John Pay, 48, said he was awoken shortly after 6 a.m. from where he was sleeping on the grass on the Mexican side as police cars rolled by. Like many of the Haitians, he had first tried to make a life in South America. Migrants have said they decided to head north when they encountered discrimination and dwindling opportunities in countries like Brazil and Chile. He said he had spent 2 months and $3,000 to reach Mexico from Chile, including $500 to a man in Mexico who promised to take him from the southern city of Tapachula near the border with Guatemala to the U.S. border, but then disappeared. So he gave somebody $500 and wow, $500 he could have bought a bus ticket and ride through the whole of Mexico and still have a lot more money left over. He was also deported from Mexico to Guatemala by Mexican authorities. We are living in constant fear because Mexican migration officials can pick up anyone, he said. I have run out of money. It's all just too much. And that's the end of the article. So, obviously, he made some bad choices by giving that man $500 to take him to the border. You know? $500, he could have got a ticket, bought a SIM card. I'm sure he had a phone. Put a SIM card in, find out information, how to get up to the border. It's not going to be easy because a lot of these people, if they do show up in court, chances are the judge is going to rule against them because they're not going to be able to convince the judge that they have a case. And that's the way the asylum laws are written. You know, it's not written that you could say, well, I graduated from college, I can't find a job, therefore I need to move to a country where I could find a job. That's not how asylum works, unfortunately.